with that? Just take us into what I'll put up the tweet as well, a couple tweets, and go through them. But what exactly happened going on with PulseX right now?
Well, Tonto Nami did some research into the code side of things, and so I'll echo some of what he came up with. But I'll start with saying what's going on. Well, there were reports that PulseX, no buy and burns were being conducted. So the first place I went was straight to K4K's Twitter, and I noticed, oh, he's silent. Where'd he go? And I was like, oh, that's odd. And not that he had anything to do with this, of course, but it's just funny. And then, sure enough, the buy and burn contracts weren't being called at all. So I made a tweet about that. Tonto dug into that, and he said, they had basically admin turned off the buy and burn. There were some backdoor discussions with at least one dev in the know who was not entirely in the know, but he had some suspicions that perhaps an upgrade was necessary. Maybe to protect everybody or just to make the protocol a little bit safer. And that's also what Tonto found. So Tonto went on to testnet. He found that there was an upgraded contract running on testnet. And the difference between the two contracts was the one that was on mainnet that was turned off was not verifying that LP tokens were legitimate. The one on testnet there's like an extra verification check to make sure that LP tokens are legitimate. So potentially, I have no idea. Potentially, there could have been like a little attack vector there, perhaps, if somebody had, minted a bunch of bogus LP tokens, maybe, and done something to the buy and burn. I have no idea. Nonetheless, it doesn't appear to be catastrophic. It looks like it's running great with the upgrade on testnet. I imagine at some point in the next week or so, somebody will push that update to mainnet, and buy and burn will start back up again, and everyone will forget that it ever happened.
Tends to happen when we have these types of things. Even the V1, V2 is kind of like, okay, that's just a thing. I think Richard sort of spun it in the marketing as a person would do. Oh, you can either donate your funds or you can keep them and in a market, let the market decide where to go for farming and where to go for LP and stuff. But I haven't looked at this code. I'm just looking at it right now. I mean, it looks like if the one on the left is the original and one that on the right is the change, which it could be backwards, but this looks like it's going from private to public. And I mean, just dev speaking, it's like private means you're not going to be able to call it, and public means you can call it after that. So maybe it's backwards or something like that. But do you know of anything? Because I know Dipcatcher talked about it changed, buy and burn no longer activated. So, but you also mentioned that there could have been some minting or otherwise LP tokens. But it sounds like, at least at first glance, I thought, oh, this was just buy and burn just wasn't buying and burning for the last few days. Or did you have a different thought on it?
Well, it wasn't. Because it was not. It was no longer publicly callable. Does that make sense? Like that. That contract was like turned off in relation to the rest of the PulseX.
So is that active on the website itself, as far as when people try to do a buy and burn and they try to earn anything, or is it so that there's no yield?
So anybody who attempted it, an error would come across their screen that said something like slippage too high. It was some arbitrary message giving an error.
Yeah, so it looks like it was private. So if the change is going from left to right, like the right being the new one, private, it was private, so it wasn't callable, and then it was turned back to public again. And I guess this is the newer version that's being tested right now. Wrote out a new buy and burn contract on testnet. Yeah, okay. Interesting.
I'm just, again, I don't want to get too far in the weeds unless you're choosing to be really technical. V1, V2, V1 had very high buy and burn because the LP providers don't actually earn. and there's only like 7 pairs, I think, on V1, something along those lines. Maybe, and then V2 seems like it's the one that's more active with people actually, looking to provide liquidity for an earn rate, right? For their percentage. I don't understand how those things can still function if it's hard coded that 29%, 0.29% is a fee. How does it still function when the buy and burn contract isn't called? Does that make sense? I don't know.
I assume it just couldn't be called when they tried to call
so
it.
You can still execute a trade, but what happens to the part of the contract that says there's a fee? Is it a free trade?
I have no idea.
I'm not sure either. I think it just fails. Something just fails. It keeps going, but it fails on that part.
Yeah, if you can trade,
and
the contract is turned off as far as the buy and burn feature, LPs would still earn their percentage, but some percentage of the trade goes somewhere, or the trade couldn't occur at all. Correct?
I'm not sure on this particular piece of code. That's why I haven't looked at the code. I'm just looking at the change and figuring out that maybe it couldn't be called. If it wasn't public, it couldn't be called. Whatever is calling it, maybe the call failed or otherwise. And it just, everything else went through except the burning part. Just whole pure speculation. Look at this diff, the diff in the code.
I don't know how to read code, but maybe it still collected all the fee and they're just all sitting there like waiting to be called, but they can't be because it was turned off. I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, again, I remember this being addressed before that Richard had made streams, years ago about a buy and burn function being automatic. And then it was basically resolved that automatic wasn't possible. Like every time that an individual chooses to make a trade, that the follow-on contract couldn't be executed, or maybe there was a legal reason why that couldn't be done. So then this page on the PulseX DEX to be able to look and see if there's opportunity to do the public call. And if you did the public call, then you would have some kind of reward for basically executing the call, paying the PLS gas or the Ethereum gas if it was Ethereum. So on an Ethereum kind of DEX. So yeah, I'm just curious about how that functions. And again, this is the hard thing about being muzzled or choosing to disengage from the community for whatever reasons, is we don't actually have a spokesperson. Brett Tepp responds sometimes with what he can feel comfortable to release, and like he did on this tweet on the 27th. And I like his personality. He's very responsive. He's inside the PulseChain dev Telegram rooms, active, addressing different issues. He just addressed something for me just recently. So it's great to have access to one of the lead devs, if not the lead dev of the team. Same thing with Gamma DevOps. Met him in person, great guy. Personality type, and can explain things ad nauseum that I just will never be able to grasp. So I like the technical people, but really the culture and if you want to call it trust factor of the brand comes down to Richard Hart. And Richard Hart is at the moment muzzled, either by his own choice or by advisement. So what does this all mean? Don't fucking know. You want to look at the chart and say, is the chart going to go up, go down? That's what most people are looking at in general in crypto. Is my bag going to pump or is it going to fall? Don't know. It's the ambiguity of the marketplace that's shown on the chart. So I would like to have some spokesperson, and all we can do is basically speculate. I just spent basically an hour before this stream in one of the Twitter spaces. Some notables. Phygital, I like Phygital a lot. He talks a lot about meme coins and tokens and NFTs and things like that. He's very active in the startup space. He's similar to Mario as far as his content and things like that. And I like that those guys are paying attention to the SEC case. I like that they're paying attention to what is PulseChain and PulseX doing. I like that, right? Even though there's this ambiguity in the marketplace and in the chart. Because we don't have the spokesperson, we don't have the cultural norm of having Richard available, so more of that would be helpful instead of, I don't know if there's going to be a PulseX V2B. Like I think Tantanomi made a tweet saying something like, maybe there'll be a PulseX V2B.
Yeah, that's the twerk one, man. That's the twerk one.
Yeah.
I posted it here somewhere. Where's my tweet?
Like,
there we go. There we go.
Spot when it comes to like who can be a spokesperson. I like that Jesse's on the stream. I like that KDP puts comment out there. I'm going to be visiting, Buck in Australia and other founders in Australia very soon, because they're the ones that are 30 or so founders. From what I understand, I'm not in the room that you guys talk regularly, but like they need clarity too. They need clarity in what is the code doing. They need security in, is the chain secure itself? Is this a DEX issue? And when something comes along that is, you want to call it a bug, you want to call it design, you want to call it 4D chess, the ambiguity is what unnerves people. It does it in the stock market, it does it in the real estate market, it does it in every marketplace. So that's where we have to look at.
Yeah, one reason I latched onto this so quickly was, Earn Protocol is going to be using PulseX as collateral, right, for a stablecoin. So we kind of needed to know, like, right away, is there a problem with PulseX itself? Might there be a new token launched, all the contracts launched fresh? What does this look like? And then what if this had happened after we had launched, right? So we had to think through all these different things. And it was a bit of like, oh shit, let's figure out what's actually going on here. Now, ultimately, it isn't a huge deal. It's like a little upgrade, a little safety upgrade for PulseX, it appears. But there's another side to this too. Clearly, there are admin keys, right? So how do we all feel about keys for various protocols on chain, where entities can just turn off things and turn things off at will? What do you all think?
That's the hard thing. Is I remember, and it's always been known that Ethereum has upgrades. It's always been, I think even when I came into crypto in 2017, I was under the illusion that Bitcoin was immutable, that it couldn't be changed, that, it was this digital version of gold, and it had, properties that were never going to change because it's decentralized and all the narratives around Bitcoin. And then I sat through the hash fights or whatever it was, I don't think it was SegWit, maybe it was SegWit, when they were saying, hey, let's do an upgrade. This is the reasoning. This is why Bitcoin has core developers that can actually, enact code changes. Ethereum has, from my learning curve, the same sort of thing. And from even evidenced on the front end of the contracts that Uniswap has, V1 was immutable as far as I understand, and it couldn't change. That's why a V2 existed. It was launched, and then there was a migration of funds on Uniswap. That's why, a V3 in further development and computer code made those things possible. So admin key, meaning, can the code itself be changed? Can the contract address be different, this month versus next month? I think that's always going to be there. Like, whether it's publicly declared or not, there's a question about, like, when I go to the website domain, am I phished? Is that domain still the same source code? Even the bitcoin.org website was quote unquote hacked, right? And had different stuff up there. And that could have been malicious, or often those types of hacks are malicious. So is it an admin key or not? It's a risk vector. Like, there's always going to be a risk vector. I think even Richard made a stream in the past before any of this about, like, you don't know who's in between your keyboard and your hardware. You don't, you might use a VPN and that you have protection because you're using a VPN, but there's so many risk vectors along the line. Hackathons make a point of saying this is impossible to access, and yet almost every hackathon they do. So, what is the risk vector of an admin key? Eric Wall likes to say that having 90% of the supply available to whether it's a single address, single entity, single person, legal team, blind trust, like, is that a risk factor? Because majority of the supply can be in decision, released into the market or whatever. We don't seem to have a problem when some rich guy that owns Tesla and SpaceX buys a lot of a cryptocurrency. We don't have a problem with the magic carpet ride, right? We don't have a problem with that. Going on Saturday Night Live and talking about something that they like and then actually putting financial energy to it. We don't seem to have a problem with that. But we do have a problem with centralization of, here's a risk vector of the admin key, the risk vector of 90% is owned by a central authority, the risk vector of, this domain, may go through 2 years of functioning fine, and then someone forgets to pay the bill, and now it goes to public auction. Like, there's risk in all of these things, no matter what people say.
I think just your point about, Elon and, just every other company that's got centralization research talked about this ad nauseum too. It's like, why are we comfortable with that? Why are investors comfortable with that? Why are they billion-dollar companies? They believe the incentives are aligned for things not to go poorly, right? Like, they believe they're in it to win it. And that's, a lot of people who believe in hex and don't have a problem with the OA or any of the things that can be considered less decentralized than usual. They're okay with that because they believe incentives are aligned. And I mean, that's what I think of when I think of that as well. But just on PulseX and centralization, admin keys, trustlessness, I think it's all on a spectrum. I think that I would value decentralization and trustlessness more with PulseChain. But with PulseX, I'm like, okay, it's a DEX. I know there's going to be decisions that need to be made. Whether would I like them to be made by the DAO? Sure, one day, hopefully that'd be nice. But if they're not made by the DAO, and it's you kind of got you got to believe people's incentives are aligned to make what you believe in keep going well in one way or another, whether it's price or network or growth or adoption or otherwise. So I don't know. I don't have with DEXs. I'm kind of like, I don't treat decentralization trustlessness as absolutes, definitely on a spectrum, but I would put more pressure on L1s as far as that goes. And we saw all the Genesis validators exit. We saw all 4,096. They're gone now. Up to you guys. Run the network, right? Community, go do it. So